All right, so now we're back again with another Simpsons Unhinged, and just a quick recap of what we have done, what topics we have done before I get to this one, and um, everything will be in the playlist in the description down below, of course. So we talked about Lisa going Gaga. We talked about that '90s episode trying to do that plot hole with Bart's birth. Homer and Bongo, Homer at the bat being Cosby Show first run syndication, the Olympics episode from Vancouver, Maud's death. We talked about that. Talked about the 15th season Christmas episode. We talked about the Principal and the Pauper. Yes, we did that one. Homer and a Pooh. Lisa becoming a vegetarian. Talked about love is a many strangled thing with the Simpsons trying to tell us that Bart deserves to be strangled. Lisa gets enough fun about her auto racing thing. The gay marriage episode from season 16. Diary Queen with Bart getting the diary. The Family Guy Simpsons crossover in 2014 and how it may be given Simpsons second wind. Bart the Mother with Bart's conflict with Marge. The Italian Bob talking about Central Bob. Um, Homer's enemy about how Frank Grimes was lovable in a sense. Homer's enemy, sorry. Kill Gill, that's the episode where we talked about Marge and her psychological problems, which the real Gems has still not done anything on. I don't know why. The Simpsons movie talked about that. Homer Ned's Hail Mary about the Super Bowl. We talked about Trash of the Titans and Springfield moving around place to place. FIFA, soccer, even The Simpsons getting into that one. Who Shot Mr. Burns about a lot of Furies. Um, the Trios of Horror saga, starting that off. Homer's phobia about Homer trying to accept homosexuality. Do Canada, when we talked about Canada's role in The Simpsons and all that. And of course, the Bart Mangle banner last time about overreaction and the American perception. But today, this is the 30th episode of this fine series, which will run to 40 for now, and then probably be expanded to 50. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to season 4 with this one, and we're going to be talking about two of the greatest Simpsons episodes being in the same year. The format's going to be a little different. I will talk about both episodes and then give my opinion who won it best. Because season 4 brought in two of the greatest episodes and had the internal dialogue. Who won it best? Who's the better Simpsons episode? And I'll give you pros and cons to everything. Anyway, this is season 4's March versus the Monorail versus Last Exit to Springfield. Jerk Homer, Marge's worries, Bart's pranks, Lisa's causes, Maggie not talking a lot, Grandpa being senile, Patty and Selma boring Marge, Artie Sif is a jerk, Chief Wiggum making things happen, Mr. Burns being a dick. You can never stop the Simpsons. Heaven knows they've been trying for years and they still come back for more. 37 seasons is a bit much, don't you think? It's a crazy Simpsons. Something happens. A do 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 do. This is not a clip show. Have no fear. I've got topics for years. All right, so in the red corner, standing tall with a huge monorail in the background. It is March versus the Monorail. So this season 4 episode starts cute as Homer does a parody of the Flintstones opening saying, Simpson, Homer Simpson, he's the greatest guy in history. From the town of Springfield, he's about to hit a chestnut tree. Boom. Anyway, we soon learn that Burns and Smithers get leftover radioactive ooze and try to bury it in a park, but um, they can't because of the bald-headed children. But then they get caught by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, who would soon be villains in the Simpsons movie. Burns is ordered to pay $3 million. He then buys that statue of limitations. So anyway, everyone wants to know what to do with $3 million. Lisa wants virtual reality helmets for everyone so that they can learn school things in school right now. And Bart wants remote control ants to destroy the school. So anyway, everyone's in town for this meeting, unfortunately leaving them wide open to Snake and his robbers, saying that, man, this town is stupid. So Quimby actually talks about $2 million instead of $3 million, trying to, maybe get $1 million as a kickback. However, ideas are told. Maud even suggests, I don't know, I forget what Maud suggests, but anyway, Apu suggests that they get better policing because he nearly missed work. And William Scott saying, cry baby. And then basically, Marge presents her idea about Main Street being destroyed by people with unnecessary weight, with Homer with a piano on top of the sedan. So anyway, they're ready to give the money to Main Street, but then Lyle Landley pops in and basically sells Springfield on the monorail, saying that it could work, and said that he sold it to Ogdenville, North Haverbrook, and some other town. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they put them on the map. And then leads a monorail song. Miss Hoover goes, I heard those things are awful loud. Lyle goes, it floats slightly as a cloud. What about a brainhead slob, says Barney. You'll get cushy jobs. Apu says, do you think the track will bend? Not on your life, my Hindu friend. Grandpa goes, were you sent here by the devil? No good, sir. I'm on the level. And Wiggum says, the ring on my pudding can. I broke the ring on my pudding can. Take my penknife, my good man. And then Monorail, March goes, but Main Street is all cracked and broken. Sorry, Mom, the mom has spoken. Monorail, 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 Mono, do. I'm poor for the monorail. They even tell Marge you should have did a song for Main Street. Marge didn't think it was necessary. Homer one day sits on the couch and watches a commercial which almost parodies himself because the fat man kind of looks like Homer. And then Lyle says, you could be Springfield's newest monorail conductor. So Homer thinks he can do that. Marge says no, and Homer says, it's my lifelong dream. Your lifelong dream was to run on the field at a baseball game, remember? And then shows the newspaper article of Homer reading Springfield's pennant. Homer is still hell-bent on it. So on the first day of training, Lyle basically tells everyone that, are there any investigative reporters? A couple said, I am. Well, I need you to leave. And then this guy in what seems to be a turban leaves too, but he has a camera. I can't believe they let Lyle push him around. So anyway, Homer tries to be a monorail conductor. He ends up getting the job randomly as Lyle actually has enough money to get to Tahiti and basically skim Springfield off. Marge goes to Lyle's office and finds all the blueprints, and Lyle finds her and says, how much did you read? Not much. Not really a lot. Good, good. And then lets Marge go. So anyway, while taking a look at the monorail, Homer says that practically nothing's going to go wrong. And then Marge notices something. Homer, there's a family of possums living in the monorail. I call the big one Bitey. So anyway, Marge decides to take a trip to North Haverbrook, basically haunted by visions of Lyle saying that he sold monorails to certain towns. Apu's, do you think the track will bend? And Homer's, I call the big one Bitey, all playing in her head. North Haverbrook is a massive ghost town. And the lady tries at the monorail cafe tries to deny there's a monorail in place. But there's a scientist by the name of Sebastian Cobb who basically tells Marge about Lyle Landley's plans. So at the grand opening, which Lyle gets out of by going to Tahiti, Leonard Nimoy comes into town, and Mayor Quimby thinks that he's part of Star Wars, not Star Trek. There's a 90210 guy who's like teenager age 27. They parody that. And even Krusty comes to town, but one lady says that Krusty bore a son, and it looks like Krusty. And then Lorraine Lumpkin comes in. Remember Colonel Homer? When she tried to seduce Homer, and Homer at the end didn't go along with it. But anyway, she said she slept in the ditch. We would actually learn years later in Papa Don't Leech that Lorraine basically had her life ruined, her country music career ruined by basically marrying offshoots of Homer's family and blaming her tax problems on her father. Nevertheless, the monorail goes. Homer seems to be doing fine, and then it starts to break apart and all that. Marge and Sebastian are actually too late to stop the monorail as Sebastian Cobb got a haircut. I don't know why. So anyway, Wiggum and Quimby argue who should be in charge of everything in an emergency situation. Of course, the monorail keeps going faster and faster, and then basically it can't stop and all that. So of course he skims corners. So it was like, what the hell? So anyway, uh, Homer wonders aloud if they're gonna die, and Bart says, "Yeah, but we'll take some people with us." And then Marge finally gets to Homer on the intercom. Homer, I'm here to help. I brought someone for you. Batman, says Homer. Marge says, "No, he's a scientist." Batman's a scientist. It's not Batman. So practically, Sebastian tells Homer to get an anchor. Homer first thinks about Bart as one, but Bart says, "Think harder, Homer." And then he finally pries the M off the monorail thing and uses a cowboy's lasso to stop the monorail. Of course, it was stopped at a time with a solar eclipse, but it was solar powered. So practically, Homer then puts the anchor onto Lard Lad's donut. Big Donut saves them from destruction. Donuts. Is there anything they won't do? Leonard Nimoy says his job is done, although Barney dispels it. And then Marge says that's the last folly that the town of Springfield ever fell for, except for that popsicle stick building, the 50-foot magnifying glass, and the escalator to nowhere. And I thought I heard her say, hmm. But anyway, yeah. So that was March versus the Monorail. And in the notes for that is that it actually was the highest Fox show that week, the week of January 11th to 17th, 1993. A lot of accolades. In 1998, it was actually in the top 12 Simpsons episodes by TV Guide. Entertainment Weekly in 2003 called it fourth of the top 25, saying it has the highest throwaway gag per minute ratio of any Simpsons, and they're all funny. Planet Simpson, the book I have, Chris Turner says it's one of his 5 favorites. IGN in 2006 says it was the best of the 4th season. Variety Fair said it was number 3 all time because of Leonard Nimoy and the mob mentality and lack of reason. In 2010, The Times in Britain called it the ninth best. 2019, Ireland's entertainment website said it was one of the greatest. The Guardian said it was top 5 in late 2019. And even Time said that it made a top 10 thing by experts. There's a lot of praise in all that. So it's joke after joke after joke. In fact, there was a reader poll from Splitsider in 2012 for the best episode of any TV sitcom, and it took second to Community's Remedial Chaos Theory. I think that's when we learned about the Dark Timeline. So, yeah, Nimoy would actually make a second guest appearance in season 8's The Springfield Files. Remember when Homer thought that he saw an alien, but it was Mr. Burns all goofed up because of cheating death for another week? It was just amazing all that. It was pretty impressive. So, yeah. For me, I like this episode because of the opening gag, and it seems like almost every minute there's a new gag, there's a new reference and all that people are still, like myself, are still quoting like 30 plus years after the fact. I know I didn't really watch Simpsons episodes first run till 1999 or 2000, but yeah, it was just amazing. And Leonard Nimoy making presents, no, that's pretty impressive too. So that's that episode. We got one down. But what about the other one? The one that everyone thinks is the greatest of all time. Is Last Exit to Springfield better? Probably, probably not. We'll see. All right. And now in the blue corner, with a whole town behind them, and to fight the real villain, Mr. Burns, Homer Simpson, in Last Exit to Springfield. All right, so this episode starts when Burns tries to see who the new Union head kingpin is and finds out that he doesn't know that the Union president was killed and buried in a football stadium, probably under Burns's guidance. So Burns actually reminisces about simpler times about his grandfather, the owner of an atom smashing plant, catching one of his wards stealing atoms and decides to put them in an abandoned coke oven. So anyhow, the guy says that we'll form a union and maybe we'll go too far, all that. So then the Simpsons have to head to the dentist and all that. The dentist, a British dentist of sorts, basically scares Ralph into brushing his teeth by showing him the big book of British smiles. He then tells Marge, that Maggie's teeth are coming in crooked. She's been sucking on a pacifier? Not to my knowledge. Liar! He doesn't talk about Bart's dental thing or Homer. Well, Homer wasn't there, but says Lisa will need braces. And Lisa says, braces? I'm going to be a social outcast. Even more so. So basically, they said Lisa needs the braces because at age 19, her teeth will pop up and poke her eye. So anyway, Marge tells Homer that Lisa will need braces, but Homer says not to worry because they have a dental plan. Homer actually reveals that there was a union demand and all that, and he got a head injury in 1988, fighting for better wages. But unfortunately, though, it was because he was banging on the thing. Why? Where's my burrito? Where's my burrito? And then the metal thing smashed him in the head. Don't. So anyway, there was a union meeting, and they don't have a union leader and all that. So now the new contract comes in. It's basically the same, except for the fact that in exchange for the dental plan, they get a free keg of beer at their meetings and all that. So they all line up for the beer, and they say, "So long, dental plan," and then Homer hears, "Dental plan. Lisa needs braces. Dental plan. Lisa needs braces," and all that. So then Homer finally clues in that if they give up the dental plan, he has to pay for Lisa's braces. So he basically tells the workers that they can't give up the dental plan because it's worked out. Lenny has a diamond in his tooth, but Carl yanks it away. And Gummy Joe, with one tooth, wouldn't have his tooth. So basically, he rips up the plan, and Burns notices and all that. Homer then is given the job of being union president and all that. So anyway, Burns decides to send Homer to his office to bribe him and all that. Unfortunately, Homer thinks that they're sly innuendos for sexual advances. He declines and leaves, and Burns basically believes that Homer is nothing short of an honest and corruptible man. Unfortunately, the dental insurance was canceled and all that. So despite the fact that they turned out the contract, the dental plan was revoked by Burns, which means that Homer has to pay for Lisa's braces. Unfortunately, though, because of the lack of dental plan, Lisa now has to wear a medieval style headgear, if you will. Like, those braces would definitely not fly in any time period. Ugh. So, anyway, Lisa goes under the anesthetic, kind of like Yellow Submarine for the Beatles, but she's basically ugly and all that, even more so. So anyway, Homer is then taken by Burns' hired goons to his mansion. Burns actually gives Homer a tour of the mansion to get him in a good mood, which actually saw 1,000 monkeys writing on 1,000 typewriters and saying, "It was the best of times, it was the blurst of times, you stupid monkey." So anyway, he gives them the largest TV in the free world. However, they decide to negotiate the contract. Homer unfortunately hears Burns say it doesn't take a whiz to realize you gotta go and all that, and makes bathroom humor. So Homer tries to search for the toilet, but can't find it. He thinks he does. So anyway, um, Burns thinks that Homer is a tough negotiator. Homer is taken back to the house in the helicopter. Burns says, "I will get you to sign the deal," and all that. And Burns somehow breaks his spinal cord, but he's fine. Homer basically tells them at the union meeting that he's tired of Burns' tactics and decides to resign, thinking that he can't do it. However, the union members, without Homer's consent, basically go strike, strike, strike. All in favor? Aye. All in opposed? Nay. Who keeps saying that? Says Homer, because the same guy, when Homer is elected union president, says nay, and then this short, wimpy guy is there with a big, towering guy, and then the guy goes, "It was him. Get him!" And then they all get the big guy. It was kind of funny. So they decide to strike. Burns tries desperately to break up the strike through several methods, including a water cannon and a few other things. Lisa, with her braces, kind of visible, not so visible, but not wearing the headgear, if you will, basically tells about a tale about Burns and Homer and all that. So by the big cooling tower, they got the strength, but we got the power. Burns even tries to get Grandpa and his World War II people to try to break up the strike because they're professional strike breakers. And Grandpa says, "We used to be good strike breakers. We're getting old. We can't have our own ways, but we have our tactics." Yeah, yeah, that's right. So Grandpa basically says, "We'll tell them stories that go nowhere, including a story about tying an onion to his belt in Shelbyville in the 1920s and pictures of bumblebees on coins and all that. It's kind of awkward. So Burns and Smithers trying to run the plan single-handedly and get robot workers. Unfortunately, the robots turn against them. Ha 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 ha. So basically, Homer is invited onto Smart Line, the Springfield thing with Ken Brockman, alongside Burns and Dr. Joyce Brothers for some effed up reason. So practically, Homer says a lot of things. Well, Homer is asked about unions being pointless dinosaurs. Ah, I've been told I can't talk to you anymore. Woohoo! And then Burns basically makes a threat that he will turn off the power. So he did it. He deliberately causes a power outage through Springfield to break the Union spirit. Although it was funny how they went to the secret room and it was just basically a broken door. But nevertheless, Lisa and crew don't lose hope and sing the protest song. Burns realizes it, and in a scene parrying the Grinch, how the Grinch stole Christmas, he tells Smithers that they're still satisfied, they're still singing and all that. I can't have that. And then decides to put the power back on, and everyone's happy and all that. Even the neon light people. So then Burns decides to talk to Homer and finally decides to give back the dental plant on the one condition that Homer must give up his job as union president. And basically, Homer goes whoop, 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 and spins himself on the floor. And then Burns realizes that Smithers, I'm beginning to think that Homer Simpson was not the tough negotiator I thought he was. So, anyway, with the Simpson family insured, Lisa's braces are now invisible and painless. And everyone talks about how great Lisa's braces are. And Lisa says, "And that's the tooth." And then they all laugh, but the room is being filled with nitrous oxide. So a lot of people want to know about the idea. So Mike Rice came up with this idea. Well, Conan O'Brien came up with the monorail one. It says if it'd be funny if the plant went on strike. And then the writers Kogan and Wolodarski says, why don't we put the dental plant in it? So anyway, Anthony Perkins became the voice of the dentist, not Anthony Hopkins or Clint Eastwood. Well, Anthony Perkins was supposed to be, but Hank Azaria took over. The guest panelist on Smartline was supposed to be OJ, but he turned the role down before the whole thing happened. So anyway, yeah, Chucky Fitzhugh being buried on your football field and all that. The yellow submarine hallucinations and all that. So anyway, yeah, it was classical gas and all that. How's heart? I stomp at feet and all that. Well, let's say to Springfield was the highest rated show on Fox in the March 8th to 14th that week. BBC said it was the show's best ever episode. Entertainment Weekly said it was the greatest in 2003, saying it was virtual flawless, a product of a series at the height of its creative powers, with the satire was savage and relevant. And Burns facing down, quote unquote, brilliance, labor kingpin Homer. Homer facing down his own brain. Dental plan. Lisa needs braces. Grandpa rattling on about the onions on his belt. It's high and low and all that. Planet Simpson, Chris Turner says it was the best because it should be taught in history, economics, social studies, literature, and art class. It's the funniest half hour in TV history. USA Today said it was number one to celebrate the show's 300th episode and all that. The Times said it was sixth. Screen Rant said it was the best episode of season 4, but second behind Homer's Enemy. Not a bad idea. There's even a Godfather part of it. I forgot all about that. So yeah, it was just the AV Club said it was number one. Rolling Stone said it was second. My question is, who did they put as number one? And all that, because it's kind of awkward. Who did they name number one? Oh, the number one best TV episodes of all time, and it's not animated thing. Okay, there. All right. So my thoughts. It was a pretty good episode and all that. Ironically, I have to go to the dentist today. Before I taped this before I had my dentist appointment to fix a tooth in my lower left corner of my mouth. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of funny the irony, and I didn't even realize that. But yeah, I think Los Angeles Springfield's pretty good and all that. It's got the big thing. But I think March versus the Monorail for me is my favorite season 4 episode because of the joke a minute philosophy and pulling you in and not taking you out. So anyway, that's all I got for this episode. We'll be back to Saturday episodes next time. In 4 days' time, we will be doing something from the most recent Simpsons episode season 37. I was originally going to do the TV season finale because I know Disney Plus is putting some new episodes on, but I was gonna do the Homer and Kirk Cracker story and basically talk about Kirk's journey, but I thought not. The more I think about it, and the more Instagram reels I watched, is that I will be talking about the Simpsons' reliance on the past, present, and future, and how it's kind of crappy in such a way. So yeah, we'll talk about season 37 on Saturday. I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.